Among the many stories about the British royal family, the story of Anne Boleyn, the second Queen of King Henry VIII and mother of Queen Elizabeth I, is perhaps the most frequently reproduced. Anne Boleyn's life is shrouded in a fog of questions and interpretations throughout the ages. Many remember her as the courageous woman who defeated Catherine of Aragon, the previous queen who was a princess from Spain. Some regard her as the woman who changed history, as her marriage to King Henry VIII led to England's separation from the papacy, a turning point for the monarchy. Although Anne Boleyn's name is well known, much of her personal identity remains unclear. Anne's birth year is uncertain, her relationship with her family questioned, and even her final scene, when she was sentenced to death, and the details of what happened afterward are fascinating. Anne was executed on May 19, 1536. At that time, she had only been Queen of England for 3 years and had only one heir to King Henry VIII. Accusations that led to her death ranged from black magic to adultery and incest. Eustace Chapuis, the Spanish ambassador and Anne's nemesis, said that Henry VIII confessed to him that he had been induced and coerced into marrying Anne by black magic. Although Henry VIII had come up with many reasons to get rid of his former lover, later generations believed that the real reason Anne was put to death was the miscarriage of her 3-month-old son in early 1536. The Spanish ambassador said of the event, "On the same day as the funeral of Catherine of Aragon, Henry VIII's previous queen, a mistress, referring to Anne Boleyn, miscarried what appeared to be a boy. About 3.5 months pregnant, she blamed the Duke of Norfolk for bringing her news of the king's injury 6 days earlier. Henry had been badly injured after falling from his horse in a jousting match. It is well known that this was not the real reason. Many say that she should not be too alarmed by this event, but some think it is a sign that Anne is incapable of bearing a child. Some people fear that the king will treat her as he did the previous queen, especially since she has been rumored to have a new woman, referring to Jane Seymour. Before her execution, Anne was removed from power and sent to the Tower of London on May 2. Leanda de Lisle, a British historian at Oxford University, says the Tudors were obsessed with the medieval heroic legend of King Arthur, and chose to use swords to execute prostitutes because Henry saw himself as King Arthur punishing his adulterous queen, Guinevere. Meanwhile, Tudor historian Katrina Marchant suggests that the choice of a French swordsman may have been a mockery of Anne, who has been described as more French than English. Anne spent her teenage years in France, where she used the charm she learned at the court of King Francis I to win Henry's heart, so bringing her death from the same place may have been a bit of a joke. Whatever Henry's motives were, there's no denying that Anne's execution was a magnificent one. Eustace Chapuis said of the execution of the former queen, "No one could have faced death more courageously than Anne. The huntsman and the deer." Interestingly, what happened afterwards is rarely mentioned. It has been said that Henry VIII was interested in the execution scene. But Anne's funeral was not prepared at all. Her body and head were wrapped in cloth before being placed in a wooden quiver, not the fine casket prepared for an English queen. It is possible that Anne's body was not prepared, and the quiver may have been hastily obtained from the execution grounds in the Tower of London. Robert Perry, a British historical fiction writer, argues in his book The Arrow Chest that the quiver may have been prepared in advance. According to American historian Retha M. Warnick, during the 1530s, Henry VIII gave Anne many valuable gifts. Often these were tools for her entertainment. For example, a bow, arrows, and gloves for archery. Archery was Anne's favorite pastime. Henry, like Anne, loved hunting. The hunter king is also a metaphor for a young lovebird who hunted many women. It is possible that Henry saw Anne as one of his victims. The English king once sent Anne a peacock he had shot himself with the message, "I hope when you eat this peacock, you will remember the hunter." Henry also once wrote a love poem that compared his feelings for Anne to that of a hunter hunting a deer. Could it be that the quiver itself was something Henry had prepared for Anne to contain the body of the young doe he no longer wanted? Anne's remains were buried in the chapel of St. Peter ad Vincula near the altar. The church was also the burial place of many other important figures during the Tudor period, including George Boleyn, Anne's brother who was executed for sodomy, Catherine Howard, the fifth queen of King Henry VIII, who was executed for adultery, Edward Seymour, Duke of Somerset, Jane Seymour's eldest brother, and John Dudley, Duke of Northumberland, an important nobleman who was executed for treason after Henry VIII's reign. Anne's body was buried simply for hundreds of years, until Queen Victoria's reign. St. Peter ad Vincula had deteriorated so much that it had to be rebuilt, and the burial site had to be excavated to improve the foundations. Excavations began in October 1876, using old plans to compare the burial sites of important figures. In the area where Anne was buried, the excavation team found the body of a woman about 2 feet, 60 centimeters, deep. Dr. Frederick Muat, a British official who had the opportunity to study the body believed to be Anne, described the woman's appearance as about 25 to 30 years old, with a slender build, a small forehead and jaw but well-shaped, and a very small spine, especially in the neck. This observation is consistent with contemporary accounts of Anne's physical appearance, especially her neck, which Anne said the executioner must have used very little force on the day of the execution. Muat said Anne was likely to be about 152 to 161 centimeters tall, which was the standard height for a Tudor woman. He also said that the skeleton showed no signs of abnormalities. Although the Victorian era did not have advanced technology to create a real image of and from a skeleton, Muat's description solved many mysteries and proved many stories, such as the belief that she was a witch with 6 fingers. This allegation first appeared in the writings of Nicholas Sanders, a Catholic priest who fled England during the reign of Queen Elizabeth I. He said, Anne was quite tall, with an oval face of pale white. She had black hair, crooked teeth, and 6 fingers on her right hand. She had a tumor on her neck, which required her to wear a shirt that covered her neck. Nicholas Sanders was very young when Anne was alive, and in fact his work was written 37 years after Anne's death. It is possible that he wrote this work to attack Queen Elizabeth I, Anne's only daughter, as an illegitimate queen, born of a mother who was involved in witchcraft. Sanders' work has been reproduced many times because it is good material for fiction. The 6th finger accusation is still talked about today, but the excavation has provided scientific proof that if the body found in the Victorian era was Anne's, she definitely did not have 6 fingers. The excavation in 1876 did not find the skeleton of another woman in the vicinity, but did find the body of a man in his 50s, believed to be the Duke of Somerset, Jane Seymour's brother and King Edward VI's uncle, which matched the historical record of his burial location. However, the body of George Boleyn, who was supposed to be buried next to her, was not found. Since he was executed just 2 days before his sister, it is possible that George's body was moved later, or that the location was inaccurate. However, despite several close indications, we cannot conclude that the body found during the 1876 restoration is the real Anne. Historians believe that the location where Anne was buried is an important position reserved for the most honorable person in the church. Therefore, if the body is not Anne, it must belong to a woman of the same level of importance as the Duke of Somerset, who was the uncle of the English king, and therefore has the right to be buried in this area. On April 13, 1877, the restoration ended. The body of the woman believed to be Anne was returned to its original location. There has never been another excavation of the area until now. If Anne's body is to be studied again, official permission from the British royal family is required, which seems unlikely to happen anytime soon. The mystery of Anne's identity is still a matter awaiting discovery and debate.